Hi Human Relations class, this is group 2, ready to present, and we were going to go out onto the lake to canoe through the waters of diversity, but due to the rain we ended up in Paris, as you can all see. So there has been a lot of stuff that I have learned throughout this Human Relations course, and 3 things I'd like to touch on for my action plan. I'll start with is that we cannot be completely prepared for everything that's going to happen in our class, and that's one thing that I've really learned throughout the course of this class, is that I can work really hard and do things to get myself better prepared for my students, but I won't be completely prepared. But by having that initial step, I have the foundation to build off of. Another thing that I learned is that all students come from different backgrounds, and that creates diversity in my class. Not the color of their skin, but the backgrounds that they come from and the cultures that they bring. So I really want to address that in my classroom and to continue working with their cultures and bringing that to the forefront of the class. The third thing that I learned throughout my action plan was I came up with this acronym I want to use, and it's called ACT. And the first is to have attention, and because I want the students to be attentive in the classroom and to continue to learn through that. The next is community, because I want the students to grow together as a community and to build each other up as they continue to understand more about themselves and about their cultures. And the third is to teach, because I want the students to teach each other, to help each other to grow. But I really want them to help each other, to teach each other through examples, by being an example leader. Through this action plan process, I got to interview a friend of mine. Her name is Mrs. Truwartha. Her husband is the pastor of our church, and so we're really close with her family. And she's a science teacher in a middle school. And what I learned from her is mostly that one example that she shared with me is that in her homeroom classroom, she does this example at the beginning of the grade each year, and she gives all the students like cards, and the cards are like a deck of cards, and the students try to trade for higher cards, but they don't know what other students in the classroom have. And then she talks about how we don't choose the rank that we get in society, and that's just given to us. And so that just really helps the students to understand how diversity really happens and things like that. And the other thing that she touched on that I really appreciated was she mentioned that she likes to lead by example in her classroom, and that's how she is a Christ-like teacher in a public school, is through leading by example and showing Christ's love to her students. And the verse that I thought really fit from what I've learned through this classroom is John 4:1-26, which is the passage with Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well. And I really felt that this really exemplified what we talked about in class, because Jesus works with the Samaritan woman and talks to her even though she has 3 things going against her. She has the fact that she's a Samaritan, the fact that she's a woman, and then the fact that she's an outcast. And because of these 3 things, nobody else would talk to her. And I felt like that's really judgmental based on what we've studied in class and things like that, based on her ethnicity and what she's done. And so I want to make sure that I'm an example of Jesus in my classroom by doing what Jesus did with talking to the Samaritan woman, even though she had all 3 things going against her. My final preamble, I did a bookmark. Hope you guys can see it. And I said, we will be a community that builds and grows with each other, leaving no one behind. And this is something I really want my students to be able to practice and to learn throughout the class. And the final symbol that I chose to represent what I've learned is a tennis shoe, because I can look at the tennis shoe and tell you what color it is, how it feels when I touch it. I can even look up statistics about it and how other people have felt when they wear the tennis shoe and how they view the company that produces it and things like that. But I actually don't know what the tennis shoe is like unless I put it on my foot and I walk around in it. And that's just kind of like what I've learned in class, is that we can learn all these things, but until we apply it to our lives, I can't actually tell people what I've been learning. And even though I can put it on once, sometimes it'll feel uncomfortable, but it's through trying it on multiple times and walking around and getting used to it that I become in love with the tennis shoes and want to run faster. And so that's what I've learned in class.
Hi guys, Jackie here. I just want to start off by feeding off of what Kendra said. She talked a lot about her action plan and about her heart from Human Relations. So I want to start by talking about my action plan. I wrote about 3 components of Human Relations. I want to start with the first being equity of voice. And this was just really great for me because I love really emphasizing the importance of people and individual voices. So I really learned a lot by, really embracing equity of voices and individuals. So I would like to do that in my classroom by having decor that really incorporates all students and embodies, their backgrounds and their visions. So I would just love to do that in the classroom and see that in my students. Also, in human relations, I learned a lot about absent narratives. Absent narratives just really opened my eyes to diversity and the importance of our backgrounds and our histories and our experiences. And I just really want my students to feel empowered by their narratives and what they've gone through and how they can use those experiences in their everyday lives and in their work and in their education. So I really enjoyed learning about that and even learning about my absent narrative and just really developing that. Also, I think it's really important that we learn to effectively communicate with diverse learners, even their families, communities, and the individual students specifically. So I think we really need to meet the diverse needs of all learners. And specifically in a book written by Paula Rutherford, she talked a lot about how to do that, and the book really opened my eyes to those components. Moving on, I want to talk about my interview with Barbara LeClaire. She is a professor here at Northwestern. Many of you probably know her. She has really been a light in my life and really guided me through my experiences in education. And just being able to talk to her about her heart and her experiences have really opened my eyes, and they've been such a blessing. Something specifically that stood out to me that she said was when she said, "Remember to walk in the footsteps of Christ, the greatest teacher of all." So I just really would like to bring that into my classroom and to think about Christ and all that I do, and to always try and walk in his footsteps, even though that's pretty impossible to do. But I would like to really just embody that and be that to my students and to those looking at me as a leader. And she just spoke with a lot of passion about students and about teaching. So I just love that she, sat down with me and took the time out of her day and out of her crazy schedule to meet with me. And I just really want to be able to do that with my students and to just really care for them as individuals. With talking to her, I really thought about how I want to shape my classroom and how I want my students to feel empowered and to live courageously. And so I found a verse in Titus that I really want to live by as a future teacher and leader, and it says, "Show yourself in all respects to be a model of good works, and in your teaching show integrity and dignity." And I really think that just speaks to who I want to be as a teacher and even as a person and a leader. So I just really want to develop that as the years go on and as I become a teacher, and just really live by what that verse is saying. And now I want to talk a little bit about my preamble, which it was, it was so great to go through the different steps of creating a preamble and what that looks like. So I came up with this. I made a little bookmark, and it says, "Together we strive to create community that uplifts one another through friendship and love." And I really think friendship and love is the foundation for which students learn and develop. So I just really wanted to, in my classroom, speak to that and speak to students who, need that foundation and need something to build their goals off of, their education, their learning. So I really think that that's the foundation, the heart of education is building off of friendship and love. And lastly, I want to quickly talk about my symbol. And, my symbol is so great. And so recently we were given flower seeds in Dr. Arby's class, so I decided to plant them. And while I planted them, I was really thinking about how the seeds represent me and how through this class I have been able to really flourish and grow just like flowers do. So I planted some flowers, and they're starting to grow, and I really think this just kind of represents where I am in learning and where I am in education. So it's just kind of showing that, like, I started off as a little grain and a little piece of something that could be so much bigger, and I planted it and now it's starting to grow and develop. So I really think that speaks to where I am and where I'm going. So I can't wait until they start to blossom and really become real flowers. So that's kind of where I am and where my heart is. So yeah, thank you.
Hi, Human Relations class. I'm Julie, and I came prepared to go canoeing today, but because of the rain, we're not doing that. And so we are charting the unknown area of Paris. And when I was doing my action plan, I really focused a lot on what I wanted it to look like and how I wanted the kids to act and how ways that I can make them reflect Jesus and how I can reflect Jesus as well. And so some of the values that I wanted to hold in that are acceptance and forgiveness, serving others and encouraging others as we are doing the Lord's work. And the next thing that I really wanted to focus on was daily steps in taking a new look at the classroom and how I, as a teacher, can show Jesus through that, and a few practical ways that I was able to think of for that was to ask students about their day and see just how they're doing, because sometimes that's really all that they need, is to have someone who is interested in their life and who is really taking care of them throughout the day. And also being in contact with the parents is a really important thing to me, and to know exactly where my students are coming from and to get a better understanding of who they are based on how they were raised. And finally, I want to give students the time to express themselves through writing or drawing or anything daily, if that would be possible in my lesson plans. But yeah, in some ways, I really am striving toward reflecting Jesus in my classroom. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about for my action plan was my acronym REACH, and that stands for Relating, Encouraging, Attitude, and Cooperation, and Honesty. And these are things that I really want my students to hold on to as they are becoming responsible students and leaders in their communities. And I think that these 5 things are really important in the way that we are able to connect with one another and become more, good leaders. So, yeah, all that to say, those are the parts of my action plan that I really wanted to highlight. And then next, I was able to sit down with Professor Barb LeClaire, and just as Jackie did, and talk to her a little bit about what it means to be a Christian leader and what it means to be a Christian educator. And something that she really opened my eyes about was that all students need encouragement every day, not just the ones who seem to be struggling emotionally or physically or socially and academically, but the students who are also struggling, or not struggling, who are excelling in their academics and other areas of life. And so I guess as I turn into more of a leader in the classroom, I really want to encourage my students in any way that I possibly can, as much as possible. And next, my scripture that I chose is 2 Corinthians 5:16 through 21, which talks about us becoming new creations in Christ, and the old is gone and the new has come. And that is a value that I want to hold in my classroom, because we, as in the fallen world, we fall and we fail every day, and we need forgiveness for that. And so I, as a teacher, want to be readily forgiving of my students when they fail and when they don't measure up to what I want them to. And also, I want my students to view me in that way when I possibly don't measure up to their expectations also. And so that kind of goes into my preamble, which says, in Miss Milk-Pointer's class, we will overflow with understanding, exhortation, which means encouragement, and equity, thus creating an environment that renders transformation in every student. And with that, I guess I wanted to focus on the transformation part of this, and the way that I want my students to come into my classroom is just as they are, and when they leave, I want them to leave feeling that they have accomplished more of realizing who they are, and being better at being relating to one another and lifting each other up. And so, yeah. And then finally, my symbol is a sponge, and this kind of shows how I have been in this class in more ways than one. At first, I look at it and I see that it absorbs water and all kinds of liquids, and that's how I have been in my class, and I have absorbed so much knowledge in this class and learned so much that I didn't know before. And next, sponges are meant to clean, and so that is what Jesus is doing in my heart, and I see him using me to clean things in the classroom and the hearts of my students, and so that is all that I have to say.
Hi class, I am one of the many Rachels. I'm Rachel Potratz, and I'm just going to kind of talk to you about my growth throughout human relations. It's all the different things that I've learned. So going off of my action plan, there was three big things that I definitely took out from just the classroom and then my placement. So first I want to talk about being a change agent in the classroom. I think as teachers it's very important for us to not just sit back and say, oh, there needs to be changes in this way or that way. We need to be advocates, and we need to actually practice what we preach and do what we need to make these changes happen. So the second part of my action plan that I found really important was absent narratives. I know others in the group have talked about this already, but I really think this is so important just because our students are going to every student is going to have an untold story, and their voices need to be heard in the classroom, and it's so important that everyone feels included. And the best way to do this is to learn about the students, learn about their backgrounds, their histories, and just all the different things that makes them who they are today. And finally, working with diversity. So I think working with diverse students is such a important thing for everyone to learn now, because no matter where you teach, you're going to have diversity in your classroom, and it's so important to understand how to work with different cultures and different religions and all those different things. I kind of have a story from one of my placements. I was in a 5th grade classroom, and I had a boy. He was from Somalia. He couldn't speak any English, and he didn't have any previous education. So being able to work with him, it was honestly challenging at times, and it was really scary the first time I had to do it. But being able to like work with him and see him grow, like just a few times I was able to work with him just to see his knowledge. Like when he would remember something, he would get so excited, and he was probably my favorite part of that placement. I just loved it so much. So those are the 3 parts of my action plan. Going into my interview, I interviewed Professor Anseth. She does the math with elementary school teachers. And one of the highlights from that interview was just she really emphasized you need to be a role model to your students. If you want them to be leaders in the classroom and to be inclusive and all those things that we've been talking about in Diverse Learners, we have to do it as well. You have to be a role model to your students to let them know that this is what it looks like, so they can, base their actions off of what you've done. So the verse that I've kind of decided to go for with my just overall OCE paper and stuff like that is 2 Corinthians 5:20-21. This verse just talks a lot about being ambassadors for Christ, because he has reconciled us, and we are called to do the ministry of reconciliation. I just think that's so powerful, because he is the perfect example of what it looks like to show love to others, and he is the perfect example of what it looks like to include everyone. Like, he died on the cross for every single person, not just one race, not just one ethnicity, not one religion group. He died for everyone. So remembering that, just being ambassadors, and just remembering that we need to treat everyone the way Christ treats people. So for my preamble, I actually did a Wordle. This is what it is. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it just kind of highlights some of the main words. I actually love how 1 is the biggest word on my Wordle. I just thought that was so awesome, because it really is true. Like, as a classroom, we're one unit, we're one group, and the fact that it really emphasized that was awesome. I'm just going to read my preamble to you guys real quick. It's, we will appreciate one another's differences, stand together as one community, and treat everyone as equal members of one unit. So I think that's just like very important to remember in my classroom, that we all are working together to be successful, and the only way it's ever going to work is if we are remembering that we're all equal. So for my symbol, I chose to do a puzzle. So I wasn't going to put it together, but I felt a lot like a puzzle during this class. There's times I was confused in puzzle because it was just a lot to take in, but it was, in the end, it was awesome. And pieces of the puzzle are all very similar to, different ethnicities and diversities. Like, they're all different, and they have different edges and shapes that just make them what they are. And if just looking at it, you can't really see the whole picture. You just see different colors, and it's not until you piece it all together that you're going to see the full picture. And that's what makes it like just the beautiful image, and what makes it worthwhile and stuff like that. So that's all I have to say. So thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Jenna and we are finishing up our Human Relations OCE project. There's just one after me. But I just wanted to talk to you a little today about my growth and experience through this Human Relations class, because honestly I entered the class kind of thinking, I didn't really need it. I came from an all-white background. My school wasn't very diverse, and I thought I embraced cultures when I encountered them. And I came to realize through this class that I really hold a lot of stereotypes and just different assumptions that have been hard to realize, but it's been really good to work through. And so when I designed my action plan, I really had this in mind, like constant self-reflection and just how to really make my classroom feel like a welcoming, safe, secure environment for my future students. The first way is through just the way I decorate and the literature I present, just what they see when they initially walk into the classroom. So whether it be just the poster boards and what cultures does that have? Is it just all white, or is literature on the shelf encompassing all cultures, and they can pick it up and feel like, oh, hey, this relates to who I am, or wow, this is how this person feels. So I feel like just encouraging growth in my students through the way they see my classroom and the way that they interact with others in my classroom. My second point that I would like to talk on today is absent narratives. A lot of my group has already covered this, so I'll try to keep it short, but absent narratives to me is huge because you really can't tell where someone comes from by just looking at them. You don't know their background and what experiences they've had. You might think you do, but you really don't. And that was a huge thing I realized this year, is that we each come in with something that creates a wall between us and the students we want to teach. And as future teachers, we really have to focus on breaking down that wall continuously as we have different experiences and come into contact with other people. So just really giving my students all of individual voice in the classroom, just where they can ask questions and really give their opinions on things without feeling judged or teased by their classmates. And the third one is my multiple means of engagement and assessment. I found out this was so huge, and we talked about a lot about UDL, Universal Design for Learning, which is really taking, I'm going to have disabled kids in my classroom and really incorporating them through assistive technology and different visuals that can benefit not only them but my class as a whole. So not just like singling them out per se, but helping them really integrate into the classroom as a whole and not feeling just left out. So I talked to my mom. She's been a teacher for 10 years. She teaches K through 5th gym. So her experience is a little different just because she's obviously in the gym, but she has still gotten to see tremendous diversity even in her 10 years of teaching. She came in, and that's the school I attended, elementary school, and it was all white. And now there's Hmong children and Somalian children, Hispanic children, lots of Native Americans, and it's just been huge for her to learn their cultures and how to interact with their parents. So she really just encouraged me to really think through my lesson planning, which we do a lot of, but just to think about how each culture needs to be integrated into the classroom, what each student might need to do to better succeed in the classroom. And she also, we focused a lot on how I can show my faith in the classroom, because this is something I've been wondering, because she teaches at a public school, so it's not something you can just, openly discuss or lead a Devo at the beginning of your class. But she said to show faith in small ways, which is huge and impactful. She said just showing that you care for a student, asking about their weekend, asking about different things that they have coming up and how they're doing with their family, and just showing them that you are that person that they can approach and really pour their hearts out to. You're a really big impact in their lives, and she really stressed that. Or even just commenting on the girls' cross necklace and being like, oh, that's really pretty, and like maybe just looking for opportunities when you don't expect them. It was really awesome to talk to her, and together I shared my preamble with her at the end. And my preamble, I actually have my display board. This is what I'm going to show in class Tuesday too. But I created a Wordle. And my preamble is, we will stand proudly as one class, embracing differences, supporting hardships, and encouraging goals and dreams. And when creating my preamble, it was really hard to get under 15 words because there was so much I wanted to say. But honestly, I had a placement teacher who told me that a preamble is a legacy. It's something that never changes in the classroom, regardless of the makeup of your students and who comes in the door. It's something when you enter, you always see in the classroom, regardless of who's in there. So I just thought that was really cool and something that I can just work on enhancing each year. And my scripture, I chose Romans 12:4-8, which just kind of talks about how we're all different and we all have something to contribute to the kingdom of God, and how we can't we can't do anything without one another. Like, we're not meant to be here in the world alone, and we have to really support one another and really build one another up. And my verse I really wanted to focus on was Micah 6:8, and it says, "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Because I feel as teachers, I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. He lays it out in His Word. And I feel like if we can really do that as teachers, then we're just that much closer to truly showing Him and reflecting Him in our classroom. And the final thing I have to share tonight is my symbol. And my symbol, I have 2 fish tanks here, which you might be thinking is kind of strange, but this one is not full of water, and the fish are, here if you can see it, really small. They're just like flopping around. They look pretty dead. That was like kind of me before coming to the class. I was like a fish out of water. Like, going into placements, I really didn't know what to expect. I was really overwhelmed. And now, even through my second placement with working with Revolutionary Sports, I've just grown so much. And so this tank shows my growth. I added water to the tank, and if you 90s kids remember the little shrink-a-dinks that you put in water and they grow, that resembles me and how I've grown as a person by just getting put into the different waters of different classrooms and really learning from my teachers and really taking in every assignment and really self-reflecting. And the great thing is that I can keep growing with more experiences, and I can just keep on and keep challenging myself to become a better teacher each day. So that's all I have to share with you. Thanks.
I'm Maddie, and I'm the last person to present from Group 2. And I just want to tell you guys a little bit about my experience with human relations. So with my action plan, I had 3 main things I wanted to talk about. The first one is cultural competency in the classroom. And with that, I really learned that it's important to incorporate every culture into your classroom, especially the cultures of the students in your class. So I want to be intentional about having books, pictures, and different things around the classroom that really incorporate every culture, and maybe even having children talk about their cultures and give presentations about where they come from and their languages and stuff like that, so the other classmates can learn about them. And then another thing that I want to be intentional about is looking past my background and really noticing that, like, everyone has their own background and their own prior biases, and I really want to break down those walls and just reach my students where they're at. And then the last thing I want to do is provide multiple means of assessment. And I realize that each child is unique and that they each have their own ways that they learn and the ways that they learn best. So I really want to be intentional about having either tests or just group assignments or projects that they can work on, so it's not always just the same thing, but really just reaching out and helping them learn in different ways. And then for my interview, I interviewed one of my youth pastors at my church, and he just really told me that it's important to pray for each student in my classroom, even if the students aren't Christians, but just praying that they would feel safe in my classroom and that they would just feel welcome and feel like it's a good place to learn. And he also talked about how it's important to really reach out to your students and have a good relationship with them, and just making sure that they feel loved and safe with you, and that they feel that they can tell you about the different things that is going on in their lives. And then one scripture that I thought was good to go with my thought process was Psalm 32:8, which says, "I will instruct you in the way that you should go. I will counsel you and watch over you." I really want to be a teacher who is really intentional and actually wants to have a relationship with my students and not just come to work and go through the motions, but actually stay after school and work with each of my students if they need me, or come early to meet with them. And my preamble, I really think it's important that each person in my classroom will be accepting and understanding of all students, exhibit honesty and integrity, and strive for excellence in all that we do. I think it's important that each student accepts and understands each other, because they all come from different places, but it's important that they feel comfortable in the classroom, and I want them to exhibit honesty and integrity in all that they do, and just being honest about things that they're struggling with and things that they're doing well, and that they can feel free to talk with their other students, and just having integrity, and that they would strive for excellence not only in the classroom but outside the classroom, so striving in sports or academics, or even just being friends with everyone in their classroom. And then for my symbol, I made this microscope, and it just shows that teachers need to really dig deep into their students and not just look at the surface things, but really look into their students and see past the outside and just look on the inside. And yeah, so that's all I did.